I say what ho, chaps and chappets, Game Chap and Bertie here.
Yes.
Yes, indeed, fellows, and I dare say we are now discussing here some very interesting news about Minecraft and Mr. Notch. Specifically, we are asking the question, why did Notch sell Minecraft?
We most certainly are, and of course this will be very interesting to a lot of you out there that have followed the game all these years. Now, Notch's mighty Minecraft empire has apparently been getting to him over the years.
Has it now?
Oh, well, apparently, yes, indeed. Now, if you didn't know about that, well, you're going to find out now.
Yes.
To the point where it was all becoming a little bit too much for Mr. Notch, and he was getting rather self-conscious, rather concerned about his public image on social media, etc., so forth, and internet in general.
That's right, of course. Mr. Notch very much had built up this big Minecraft empire based on this hugely popular game, and apparently the whole thing, the image of Mr. Notch, he was becoming a bit conscious of it, like Bertie says there, and starting to think, well, I've got to preserve this image, and perhaps he was getting a bit upset with certain people sending him nasty messages and tarring that image.
Oh, now then, yes indeed. Now, in case you didn't know out there, Mr. Notch, sold Minecraft to Microsoft for $2.5 billion US.
That's
now,
right.
Since he owns 71% of the company, you can do the math to work out he got around $1.7 billion for that.
So basically, he got a vast sum of money for selling Minecraft to Microsoft, $1.7 billion, and then he decides to go and buy the most expensive heist ever sold in Beverly Hills for $70 million, and he's been doing things since then, like spending $180,000 per night in Las Vegas nightclubs, etc., and so forth, just living the high life there.
Well, most certainly, since the sale. So, of course, you've got this chap here that was basically just in Sweden there, early days, saying he's just sitting in the kitchen programming this game.
Yes.
All of a sudden, he's doing this after the sale of the game, which, you know, he built up over the years. Now, on to the reason why Notch sold Minecraft. But before we go there, let's just lay a foundation for you. We'll lay a bit of foundation for you. Now, Mr. Notch, Jacob Porser, his friend, and Carl Manning, the chief, as it were, and the Mojang crew did not spend, or as far as we can see, a single cent, as it were, on advertising Minecraft. It was one of those things that really just exploded in popularity, due mainly to the internet and primarily online exposure from places like YouTube, etc.
That's right, of course. Indeed, it was very much one of those things that really went viral across the whole internet, across social media, across Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and other places like that.
Yes,
it was launched very much as the internet was coming into its prime there, with iPads coming in on the scene and children wanting to build creations and express their creativity in this cool new way in Minecraft. And of course, Mojang basically exploded. It became a huge success and started raking in hundreds of millions of dollars per year. Now, Mr. Notch, of course, at the top of all this, started taking large shares of the cash profit in exchange for his licensing fees of Minecraft to the company. So basically, he owned the show, so the money was his.
Well, yes, indeed, and of course, meanwhile, the staff there were treated to lavish parties, the fancy paintings on the wall, these super plush offices, and even a $3 million group bonus in 2012. It was all happening. It was just wonderful.
It was very plush, as you say, and the staff were getting all those trackings of luxury, etc., and so forth. But unfortunately, however, things started to go a little bit wrong.
Oh, they did indeed. Now, Notch handed over the reins of Minecraft to Mr. Jeb and the rest of the Mojang staff, while Notch himself took a bit of a back seat, as it were.
A back seat, yes.
Well, indeed. Meanwhile, players from all over the world were sending him angry messages about things like balance changes, game bugs, broken boats, and such like, and saying, Mr. Notch, what are you doing? You know, why aren't you doing the Red Dragon, all sorts of things like that?
Mr. Notch, you so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so.
Well, yes, for the rest of it.
As Mr. Notch then said, he said, and I quote here, I was struggling with why people are so mean online. And he said it seemed like the mean comments were written in a big font size, you know, and...
well, yes, indeed.
There were other factors too. He had personal matters weighing heavily on him at the time,
yes.
And these comments started to really affect Notch personally. And I mean, it was at this stage that he began to think about his exit.
Most certainly. Now, ultimately, the final straw, the one that broke the camel's back, came for Mr. Notch. in the form of a rather large dispute that we reported on at the time, and you
Yes.
may remember.
That's right.
About changes to the game's end-user license EULA agreement.
That's right, the EULA, or End User License Agreement. Now, as we said at the time there, fellows, Notch's company wanted to impose restrictions stopping server owners from charging players real money for virtual items, like special ranks or stronger swords.
Right, okay, so just pick up on that. What was going on here is we had these server owners
Yes.
just out there saying, okay, I've got a great idea. You've joined the server, and there's all sort of perks you can buy. So you can buy a gold sword for X amount of dollars.
That's right.
And you can buy some diamonds that were normally in the game for X amount of dollars.
And
you
yes,
know,
you can buy the notorious God Armor or God Sword for so much in so many dollars. And perhaps Notch was getting a bit tired of emails from distressed parents demanding refunds for expensive items their children had bought on these servers, which were nothing to do with Mojang. And also, I think maybe another factor there, Notch's personal feelings also ran strongly perhaps against the idea of paying real money for virtual trinkets that could literally disappear overnight.
Well, most certainly, yes, indeed, no doubt. I mean, and quite rightfully so. Notch moved in and said, well, hang on. And the company said, look, we can't have this. And basically, you cannot any longer do that. You can't just go out there and sell our assets, virtual assets online. But he said, what you can do, you can still have your server. That's fine. You can still run your servers and do all this.
Yes.
And you can even charge people. I think they could charge, couldn't they, for
Entry fees, I
Entry
think.
fees sort of thing.
That's
He
fine.
even let them do that. And it was quite fair in what they were saying. But the community, or certain people in this community, didn't like that very much and began to hack at Notch, sending flack his way through Twitter and other online social media platforms.
They didn't actually literally hack Notch, you understand. They
Well, no,
started to
not
attack
hack.
Notch.
They started to attack him, that's what I meant.
That's right.
yes.
Now, Notch's end-user license agreement changes indeed sparked a big negative reaction from the community, and specifically, of course, the server sector. And it seems he was really poking the hornet's nest there without realizing it, even though perhaps he was doing what some considered was the right thing. And as he received a torrent of hateful tweets directed against him on Twitter and other sites, he made a tweet which would change the scene forever.
He most certainly did. Now, let's have a look at that tweet. When I can remember, I think, actually seeing that tweet. And
Yes, I can too, yes.
We saw it, and we thought at the time, it was like a joke, maybe, just a joke. Now, what was the tweet? Well, Mr. Notch said, anyone want to buy my share of Mojang so I can move on with my life? Getting hate for trying to do the right thing is not my gig.
Oh, really? Well, indeed.
that's what he said.
Now, this tweet, you have to understand, Vales, it was made at a time when Notch had all these pressures piling up on top of him. He wasn't feeling too well, perhaps, at the time. He was just at home, and he thought to himself, well, why am I putting up with all this? You
Well,
know?
exactly,
And
yes.
He's made that tweet perhaps as a semi-joke there, and people like us at the time thought, well, is Mr. Notch being serious here? Is this real? Is it fake? Who knows? But,
Well, exactly.
One thing's for sure, though, fellows. Meanwhile, Carl Manny, his CEO of Mojang, you understand, was at home, and almost straight away after the tweet, he got a phone call from Microsoft.
Well, let's hang on, just think about this. Yes, I mean, apparently what happened, Notch just tweeted this thing on Twitter there.
Yes.
And it wasn't long after that the CEO there you've just mentioned, Carl Manny, started to get people coming along, companies, real companies, taking the tweet for serious and saying, well, yeah, okay, yeah, let's talk about, us buying your entire game.
That's right, Mr. Manny had to ask Notch if he was being serious, and it seemed Notch was, well, kind of serious after all.
It most certainly was, yes indeed. It seemed that the tweet Mr. Notch made was not just in joviality, etc., but actually here there was something, and a lot of that tweet, which he actually meant.
That's right. Now, other companies like Activision, EA, and Blizzard also followed suit expressing interest, but Mr. Notch said he ruled out some companies because they, quote, did gameplay in a way we didn't like.
Most certainly, yes, indeed. And also, he also ruled out companies that wanted to include him in it. And this is an interesting point.
Yes.
Mr. Notch has clearly said he wants, and indicated and said, he wanted a clear, clean, precise break from the whole thing.
Yes.
He just wanted out and out 100%.
That's
so
right.
companies that have come along and said, well, hang on, look, we'd like to buy it from you, and perhaps you can sort of just advise and have a little part in it.
No.
He didn't want to know. He said,
No.
no, I want out and out 100%.
That's right. The terms of the agreement then with Microsoft, which was their ultimate decision, were that Notch, Carl Manny, and Jacob Porser, his old boss, had to get a clean break from the company, as Bertie says there, and also that there wouldn't be any staff layoffs at Mojang. Mojang.
Most certainly, that's what they said, yes indeed. Now, the thing is, I mean, could these people just tweeting Notch and generally just saying about, the EULA and other things like that, could it really cause such a reaction to Mr. Notch? Well, it seems this is the case.
Oh, that's right. Now you have to also take into account Notch's final words after the deal went through, which were, and I quote, "It's not about the money, it's about my sanity."
Right, so stop right there. It was. So we're talking about, a lot of people might think, well, yes, I can understand why you'd sell that. $2 billion, $1.7 billion, that's a reason to sell. Yes, great idea. But the suggestion here, and indeed what Mr. Notch said, is, well, it wasn't about the money. Well, let's be fair, he already had the money.
Okay, he had loads of money.
He didn't have
yes.
1.7 bill, but for goodness sake, he had enough money. They were already sort of rolling in the millions, and once you get to that point, there's not too much you can't do.
To give you an idea, I think in one of the years his personal profits were in the region of $100 million, which is not a small sum.
Exactly. So I think when he said it wasn't about the money, that was quite true. I mean, if he was sitting there on $200 a month income or something, you could understand it. But it wasn't about that. It's about my sanity, he said. What a statement!
That is quite a deep statement, I think,
Yes.
and perhaps these things really were getting to him, Mr. Notch. It was
yes.
very much for real there, where together with his personal family issues, he was starting to think, I can't take much more of this. This is absurd,
Well, yes, indeed. But of course, they did actually indeed sell.
That's right.
Now, also, see, just after selling this, they had a little celebration as well, apparently.
They did.
But this celebration only actually included Mr. Notch, Jacob Pearson, I do believe.
Jacob Porser, yes.
Porser, I beg your pardon, which is a good friend of his, and Carl Manning, of course, and I think Carl Manning's brother.
I see.
But not the rest of the Mojang staff.
Oh.
Now, apparently, you may say, well, why on earth didn't they go? I think Mr. Notch went off to places like Miami and places like that and had fun. But of course, the rest of the team didn't go.
No.
Now, apparently the reason for this was because they were a little bit, shall we say, upset, or Mr. Notch used a slightly stronger language, at him and the others for selling the game and selling out to Microsoft.
Right, they weren't on the best of terms. Now, a lot of the Mojang staff were apparently quite bitterly disappointed about the decision to sell out to Microsoft, and some of them are, so they say, still angry at Notch today for what he did, but Mr. Notch's response in his own words was simply, well, we spoiled them, and their reaction hurts me.
Well, most certainly an interesting statement. Mr. Notch was having none of it.
No.
Talking about his own staff, he said, well, yeah, we spoiled them. And, what does he mean by that? Well, if you think about it, yes, I mean, they weren't taken on a holiday then, but I do remember them all being flown out in private aircraft, over to the airport in limos, out on cruise ships, celebrating so many million sales of the actual game. And they did things like, as we said earlier, the very lavish offices, very well treated. I seem to remember Mr. Notch giving some of his tax money to them early back in, he was 11 or 12.
Exactly. Now,
he really treated them well.
He did, and perhaps the staff's plush offices and lavish parties were a lifestyle that just simply couldn't go on forever. And I think this is really a terrible thing. I mean, you had Notch there in charge of a very good working environment there of Mojang. They were quite a close-knit development community there, I think. About 47 people in all, I believe. And it was just a terrible shame there, I think, to see Notch on bad terms with them like that.
Well, yes, it was. I mean, it's just one of those things that happen often.
Yes.
These things happen in business.
They do.
But of course, Mr. Notch has gone on now. But the reason why, the title of this video, the reason why seems to be because Mr. Notch just could not handle the mental hassle, stress of these people online hassling him over his decisions on the game, which really were not unfair, they were quite fair, other things, and just general hassle he was getting. He couldn't handle it.
Well, I mean,
and
yes.
the responsibility of it all.
Certainly from a company standpoint, it was fair for him to do that, because after all, he was in charge, he had the final say, so he could do what he wanted to do. But certainly he did, I believe, incur a lot of wrath and a lot of unnecessary hate there from people who were perhaps disgruntled with various decisions they were making and directions they were going. And I think it also was his friend, Mr. Porser, Mr. Jacob Porser, that said perhaps some of those rants were being written just for the benefit of other people on the internet, not necessarily even targeted at Mr. Notch per se, but just to have a rant and have a go at him, and all that sort of thing. It really adds up, especially if Mr. Notch is perhaps typing his name in there and seeing all this hatred and so Mr. Notch and all that sort of thing. It's very nasty.
Well, could it be perhaps one of the biggest intimidation sort of situations we've seen on the internet, in the world?
I think so.
Causing him to sell an entire game like that.
I know, it's huge, and really, Mr. Notch, he is quite a, shall we say, a reserved person, I think. He's not sort of a hugely outspoken, unlike some on the internet, and perhaps, therefore, it's gone under the radar of some observers, but certainly we can say for sure here, Fedeos, this was a very large reaction from the community to a series of changes that were made there, and then a very large reaction from Mr. Notch in response, perhaps, at least partly, to the hassle, as Bertie says, he was getting there.
Well, exactly. It's like he's basically said, okay, you didn't like my idea of running the game, and I didn't think it was too bad, I didn't really do anything wrong, so fine, see how you get on with Microsoft. It's almost like something like that's being said.
I mean, that would be quite a, shall we say, an extreme stance to take, but there may be some truth, perhaps, in what you're saying there. Maybe. Who knows? But only Notch himself knows the precise reasons for why. But we can certainly say that a large part of it was motivated by the stick and hassle and flack he was receiving online in response to his decisions. Now, of course, moving on from that subject, these days, I mean, Mr. Notch, he plays games, he parties hard, he goes to nightclubs and that sort of thing, and he's got a cash windfall there, so earning huge amounts of interest. So, I mean, really, he's set up, old chap.
Well, most certainly. He seems to have, with that, completely separated, and he wants to completely separate himself from the whole idea of him being, the big chief with the banner up the top there, Mr. Notch is running Minecraft, and that association with it and the community thereof. He's completely separated himself from it and gone somewhere else.
That's right. I mean, he's got a new life basically here.
Yes.
He's the same person on Twitter, of course, but I mean, really, he has a new life. He hasn't got money worries. I mean, apparently he's been quite fond of drinks these days. He likes vodka Red Bull, apparently, but he's not an alcoholic, of course. And also, he said he's tried Tinder, but apparently there's only about 4 girls in Sweden, which makes it a bit difficult.
Tinder, that's a dating site.
A dating site, yes. So he's trying all these different things and the trappings of the high life, very much so. And,
well, he is. But interestingly, just coming across you there, you mentioned his Twitter account. Did you know that he actually did suggest that if he got too much stick and too much hassle, as it were, over closing Minecraft down, that he actually considered, if he had that on Twitter, he would consider shutting his Twitter down.
Really?
Yes,
I see.
maybe.
And perhaps starting up a new identity online, perhaps.
Well, maybe, yes.
I'm not sure. Well, one thing's for sure, Fidelis, Mr. Notch has certainly moved on, and apparently he and his old boss Jacob Porser, who was the co-founder of Mojang, have apparently made a new company called Rubber Brain, which might someday produce a best-selling hit, but for now it's just some sort of pretend company, apparently, for want of a better word, where they don't really do anything. I mean, they sort of play games and brainstorm and that kind of thing, but it's a show company, really.
Well, I think it's just somewhere that they go. It's a place that they can go and just say, well, we've got somewhere to go now.
Yes.
We go there and we think about things and think about life, and yes, you're supposed to do that, aren't you?
And they play clicking games and things, you know.
Yes, I think they play. I mean, after you've been, all of your life, you've just been sort of doing your job, as it were, going to work, etc. Suddenly you don't have to anymore. Perhaps they need something to fill the gap,
Well, I mean, in fairness, I don't think Mr. Notch has had to go to his job for many years now. He was a very rich man in 2012, and now he's hugely rich. Do we have any other words or quotes from Mr. Notch on the subject?
Well, I think Mr. Notch said a quote from Leonardo da Vinci, I believe.
Really?
Art is never finished, he said, only abandoned. Interesting for philosophy, I think, but not a reason in itself, of course, to get rid of the game. And I would say with that, well, perhaps not abandoned, perhaps abandoned permanently.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you could say Mr. Notch, in a sense, abandoned the game, but of course, in another sense, he hasn't really abandoned it, because now it's in the capable hands of Microsoft, and I mean, goodness only knows where they're going to go with it.
Of course, and Microsoft know exactly what to do.
Minecraft is not abandoned. We've got the Windows holographic thing, a new idea that Microsoft are currently intently working on here to get this to market, with the idea of having these building blocks in your living room. So, although Mr. Notch himself is no longer here, and I mean, some say Mr. Notch was the driving talent behind Minecraft, it's just not the same without Mr. Notch, and I think that's true to an extent,
yes.
But certainly we can say that the game has not been abandoned, and there are things going on to take it forward, like the holographic technology, and no doubt many more surprises that the Microsoft chaps might pull out of the bag.
Well, most certainly, just talking about the holographics there, yes indeed, I mean, Mr. Notch himself said, he perhaps could have got more money for it. No doubt he said that, especially with his recently recently we've had this, them talking about the hologram idea with Minecraft and bringing that in Microsoft. So of course, yes, there's a lot happening there. But at the end of the day, Mr. Notch is out, and he's out for good.
Yes.
What do you think about it out there?
We can't quote him on that last bit, Oldboy. We don't know for sure. He might have wanted to get more money, but certainly the thought must have crossed his mind, perhaps, when he saw that holographic technology there. It's just incredible, I have to say. But indeed, Vez, what do you think of Mr. Notch's reasons for selling Minecraft? There you have it, I say.
Well, yes, most certainly. What do you think? Do you think it's all just not the same without Mr. Notch there, and you'd like him back? What do you think? Or do you think it's just going to bob along okay and be all right anyway?
Well, indeed, I say. In any case, we can say for sure Mr. Notch has gone, perhaps for good, and who knows, he may never return to the gaming sector, but he certainly left his impression in his own very unique and recognisable way.
Indeed he has, and now you know why.
Indeed, I say. There you are, Vales. Thank you most kindly for joining us in this Game Chef and Bertie news update bulletin of sorts, and we look forward to seeing you once more on the next exciting outing, my word.
Oh, yes.
As when.